I want to call your attention to the book of Joshua just for a few minutes, and I'll be out of your way. I want to honor all those great preachers that has been in this pulpit this month, preaching on behalf of our Savior and honoring our pastor, Dr. Marriner. All of them has been tremendous. Joshua, the 14th chapter. And I'll begin around the 9th verse. My words may slightly differ. I'm reading from the New Revived King James Version, that of yours, but the meaning and the content is the same. It says here in the 9th verse of the 14th chapter of the book of Joshua of the Old Testament division, it says, so Moses swore unto that day, saying, surely the land where your foot has trodden shall be your inheritance and your children's forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord my God. And now, behold, the Lord has kept me alive, as he has said, these 45 years. Even since the Lord spoke this word to Moses while Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now here am I this day, 85 years old. And yet, I'm as strong this day as on the day that Moses sent me. Just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, both for going out and coming in. Now, therefore, give me this mountain of which the Lord has spoken in that day. You may be seated. I want to talk to you about Faith 101. Faith 101. Usually when you receive some type of instruction, perhaps if you're in a classroom setting, it starts with the basics. Some of you may be gifted to take advanced courses. Of course, I wasn't. And so my classes started in Basic 101. And so I had the opportunity to go and to finish. I didn't finish head of my class, but I finished. Because I started with just basic stuff, learning the basics. You may not be a top-notch person or whatever you do or whatever profession that you're in, but you can just start with the basics. Here is a story that relates that. That relates the basics. As we look back over the life of this historical church, one of the oldest churches, perhaps in Virginia, had some great leaders that graced this pulpit. In the persons of Reverend Dr. G.G. Campbell, who left Grove and went on to pastor the Moore Street Baptist Church in Richmond and became the chaplain at Virginia Union University. Great honor. The likes of Reverend Dr. Ralph Reavers, who graced this pulpit and went on to pastor the Riverview Baptist Church in Richmond, one of the leading churches at that time. And then there was Freeman Rose, PhD scholar, African-American writer. Then there was a young man who had just entered maturity at the right age of 26 from Bowers Hill, Virginia. Came, and your hearts were filled with the joy of his call. Now he stands here 30 years later, matured in that faith. And how marvelous that is. But this text rings out an individual who was perhaps not of the noted 12 of that spy committee. Check it out, read it when you get home. It was a man who was perhaps the least of them because of his bloodline. And his bloodline had nothing to do with his basic faith in his Creator. Sometimes people think because you're not of a certain family or you're not of a certain royalty or priesthood that you won't ever amount to much. Not so. You can be from Bowers Hill and yet pastor one of the largest churches in the region. No special bloodline, no special royalty, but a person who perhaps had a self-conscious, self-identity crisis, but yet he stood here, not worried about what somebody else thought, but what he thought of himself and what God could do through him. Just basic faith. But here, this man who was a part of this elite group, Moses was concerned now with all the murmuring that's taking place, that's going on in the life and the nation of Israel. They fussing at each other, they arguing at each other, they pointing fingers at each other, saying that maybe they should have stayed back in the slave camps of Egypt and never came out to be where they are, where God had delivered them to be. And this was really getting to Moses. It was really getting on his nerves. You know, people can get on your nerves sometimes, and they don't really mean to, but that's just human nature. And it was getting on Moses' nerves. So what Moses did, he put together a spy committee over the promise that God had already given to him, and he knew it was there. But he put together this committee of 12 men. 12 tribal leaders, 12 individuals who had leadership experience and knew how to handle people and knew how to handle complaints, knew how to put things in order. So he brought them together and he told them, listen, you're on a spy mission now. Go over to the promised land in which God has promised to us and spy it out and come back and give me a report and let me know what you found. They went. Spied out the land. All 12 of them. And here's what really blows my mind. How is it that 12 people can be sent to do an enormous task of a mission of that magnitude for 2-point-some million people? Just 12 of them. And come back with something that is negative, that's going to prolong the murmuring, prolong the arguing and the bickering. How is it that just a small percentage of people can represent millions, but yet don't understand the flight and the price of the mission? Don't really understand what their journey is all about. They were sent there to spy out the land, and they came back with a majority report. A majority report. All of them agreed that the land was rich. It was flowing with milk and honey. Every one of those spies committed themselves to, yes, this is a great land. It is a great land. It is truly everything that God said it would be. But we can't handle it. We are not ready yet. We are not ready for this task. We can't go. Now, was it because they got complacent? People do get complacent. They enjoy where they are sometimes when God says move. Give them the benefit of the doubt. So Moses called them together. He says, listen, what did you find, fellas? What you come up with? Well, 12 of them, but 10 had a solid majority. That the land was everything it should be, and said that God said it would be, but they were not going to recommend that the nation move in that direction. What? All of you agree that it's fine, it's prosperous, rich and fertile? but you're not making the recommendation. But then there was a lone voice. There it is, Marriner. The lone voice. Caleb. Not Joshua. Because Joshua is now going to become the second generational leader. Joshua kept a little quiet until Caleb spoke. Caleb said, listen here. I know the land is rich. I know the land is flowing with milk and honey. There's no question about it. It is rich. And there's some giants over there. And I know we look small to them, but we can take it. One man. Then Joshua said, yes, we can. We got two. Which says to me, God don't need a whole lot of y'all. To get done what he needs to get done. When Marriner came here, I had the privilege of being with him when they were doing the construction, when they were putting these beams up. And I said, wow, man, this is an awesome vision. He said, Gator, he calls me Gator. He says, Gator, you know what? I didn't see it until God showed it to me. And he says, I know it's going to come to pass. We standing here with no walls, just beams up. What a great faith of a young man that's from the same region, knew the same folks. Some of y'all knew his mom and daddy. Just plain Melvin. But God gave him a vision. Like Caleb. We can take it. We can have it. Because God says it doesn't take much. All we need is faith like a mustard seed. We don't need a whole lot. If you can see it, if you have a vision, you can see it and get it done. If you got the faith, if you got faith 101. Some of y'all contemplating on doing some things. You don't need a whole lot. May not have the resources. You may not have the time, but just put faith 101 to work and watch God do the rest. God can do marvelous things. So they concluded that they couldn't go. They couldn't do it. We look small. We look like grasshoppers in their sight. It's giants over there. We can't go. So Moses says, okay. So he goes and talks to God about what the committee had found. How many times have your pastor talked to God on your behalf once you've given up? Moses said they can't go. They're afraid they can't go. God says, okay, you go back and tell them that none of them gonna ever reach the promised land. They're gonna all die off. Nobody but Joshua and Caleb is gonna go. Now here's the thing that got to me. And he says, you're gonna stay in the wilderness 40 more years. They've already been there 40. They got 40 more to look at. And he sends Joshua and Caleb back. Sometimes the leader got to endure your mess. When you stubborn, God don't let him escape either. They had to endure being in that wilderness 40 more years. But here's the good part. When they all died out, Moses had died. Joshua was now in leadership. He's leading the nation of Israel. Caleb is yet alive. Caleb said he was 40 years old when the land was promised to him and he was a member of the spy committee. Now he's 85 years old. And he says to Joshua, you remember the promise that Moses made to us? Do you remember that promise that he said the Lord says we can take this land, we can have it, It's ours. All we have to do is go and be faithful in what we do for him, and he'll bless us to do. We remember Joshua. Caleb said, listen, I'm 85 years old. I'm just as strong now as I was then. Give me this mountain. Joshua said, yeah, Caleb, it's yours. You can have it. Everywhere your foot drive, everywhere you travel, everywhere you go, this land's gonna belong to you. And not only you, but to your ancestors and to your children's children and your children's children. You're gonna be blessed. Go take the land. Caleb said, I'm strong now as I've ever been. Never fear when God is on your side. And I'll close with this. Don't y'all get weary, because Melvin Marriner has been here 30 years. He's just as strong now as he was then.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. If God is impacting your life through this ministry, join us in reaching others all over the world by investing today. You can give at grovechurchva.com/giving. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more messages like this one.